More great info, Tammy. Gosh, you're there. Hello, hello. Good to see you all. Do say hello on the thingy, on the live chat. Last week, I had sort of hysterical meltdown and turned into some kind of giggly girly because I was trying not to say hello to people. We're just going to go with the flow today. Hello, David. Is it really Monday already? It is. A whole week has gone by, and where did that one go? Because they just vanished, don't they? They just vanish. Hey, dear boy. Good to see you, Voika. Full Monty. So, for those of you that aren't familiar, for those of you that aren't regulars, what we do in these Monday sessions is a live Q&A, so do feel free to drop a question in on the live chat at any point. But what we're going to be kind of running with a theme today is about mindfulness, the aspect of mindfulness, of being mindful, and of kind of living from that perspective of trying to be as observant as possible and detached as possible as the observer in our own life. And how does that sit with dowsing? How does that sit with the sort of spiritual aspect, house healing, and all of that sort of thing that we discuss here on the channel? JF, good to see you. Don't answer you. Roger. So we're talking about mindfulness. We're talking about everything. Nancy, hello. And there we go. First of all, a few things, a few little bits of housekeeping, For any of you that are watching this on playback, really, it's best to try and join in on the lives. I know that 3:30 GMT on a Monday afternoon is not great for everybody, but obviously joining in on the lives, you get the full benefit of the Q&A session. On a playback afterwards, it can be quite frustrating for some of you, but I appreciate that, you know, that's the way it is. I do try to edit little shorter versions to go onto a different playlist, but time, where do I find the time? So there we go. Buffering in USA. Julie, good to see you. So there'll be lots of meandering. We wander through this for about an hour, 45 minutes to an hour, see how we go, and happy to take questions whenever you want. That's a little B there from Julie. So again, for those of you that aren't regulars, this channel really is all about looking at the subtle aspects of our subjective experience as human beings. In that sense, that's what I tend to do, is to share my experience of sort of working with those subtle realms. I've worked with them for over 20 years or so, and more recently directly as a house healer. So what we sort of discuss is some of the facets of focused intent, the way that we can use those subtle aspects of being human to actually make changes in our lives. Okay, and one of the big key things to all of that is dowsing. Dowsing is a very practical and grounded way to access some of these facets of our reality. Now, hello, Margie. Nice to see you. Oh, you're in Alaska. -5. Yes. Hello, Craig. Good to see you. So that description of what we talk about on the channel sounds rather deep. And this is an expression, this deep, you know, what you're doing there is a bit deep, has come up a couple of times over this last week. And I'm not sure that it really is as deep but as it sounds, but there's no way I can kind of figure at the moment of making it sound less significant, because the fact is that, you know, once we start to really activate the spiritual aspect of self and really get in there and just relax into it, then, you know, actually it does become incredibly significant, because we are talking about our direct connection to our creator, you know, and all that that implies. We're going to get onto mindfulness shortly, but part of this is about really kind of embracing that aspect. Now then, Tom, don't you start that. That aspect of self, which is the divine connection. And if that's a deep concept, then I suppose it is deep. But really, what we're trying to do, what I'm trying to do with all of this stuff, is to make it as accessible as possible, and try to avoid some of the heavy and deep aspects, all those suggestions that we have to live in a certain way in order to find that spiritual self, in order to access that spirituality, the healing that is available from the subtle realms. Because I don't think that we have to be special, greatly change who we are to do this, to make use of this energy and to work with it. And all we're really doing is shifting our perspective on what occurs to us in life. And we're also trying to influence in a positive way the things that occur to us, but that really is through adjusting our perspective on what is occurring around us, our seeming external reality, which of course, as regulars will know, we consider to be our internal reality, created from there. So I'm laughing because I've just completely lost myself in all of that. So let's just go back and sit in that for a second, because there is a great yearning, there's a great need for understanding ourselves. We are who we are. We come to the point of a spiritual awakening from whatever position we come at it from, right? We are who we are when this doorway is presented to us in our lives. And usually that doorway appears because actually we're going through so much crap at the time that actually this doorway, there is no choice but to look at this doorway and to sometimes beseech God, the universe, whatever we consider maybe greater than ourselves, whatever we consider sometimes is creating all of this, for help. And that's quite a common way of coming to the position of reassessing one's life. And so therefore, quite often we come to it from a point of extreme adversity. And effectively, you know, as they say, things can only get better from that point on. You're either coming at it from that point, the doorway appears to you to take the choice to start to explore the spiritual aspect of self from that point of adversity. Or you say, okay, I really want to explore this, things aren't going too badly. And then sometimes your life then, as you take that step to maybe enter into a healing modality, learn Reiki or something like that, or house healing. And what happens is that actually your world then gets turned upside down momentarily for maybe 6 weeks, 8 weeks or something like that, because you're basically readjusting and changing your perspective on your life. So I guess in these sort of senses, then actually this stuff that we do discuss here is actually quite deep. Jim, good to see you. So quite just throw that in there for starters. Usual structure, do ask any questions you want to ask as we go along, right? Because we'll just kind of meander our way through these things. Again, regulars will know that primarily what we focus on this channel is mindfulness, meditation, dowsing. They're all linked and they all revolve and they all allow us to access that spiritual part of self, but they are integrally linked together in some very obvious ways and perhaps in some ways that aren't so obvious. And I think that sometimes I'm guilty of not sort of pursuing a line of thought to the extent that it allows some people that kind of skirt through this channel to actually pick up and see the significance of it. So mindfulness is one of these aspects that I think I may have kind of skirted past in the past. That's an unusual fireplace. It is an unusual fireplace here now, but that's the way it is. I think actually it was because you see how narrow those sides are, right? On that one, really narrow. I think it was basically a bodge job by the previous owner. Let's not get sidetracked. Mindfulness. There's a really, really good book. Oh, Billy. I don't know whether Billy's here online yet or not. Billy's Craft Room. Billy, message for you if you only pick this up on playback. Billy offered to be a moderator on this, the live. We failed to make contact and I don't really understand the technical details of how to make her a moderator. Billy, please drop me a line, contact me on the using the contact sheet on my website and we'll go from there maybe for next time. But this book about mindfulness, right? This book, I've mentioned it before in the past. It's called Mindfulness, Finding Peace in a Frantic World. And it's by Mark Williams and Dr. Danny Pellman. We'll put the link somewhere. Okay, Billy, there you go. Good. So if you can contact me on the website, use my contact form and we'll start a conversation. Thank you. Because I don't know what to do with it. So mindfulness, finding peace in a frantic world, is available from Amazon. I know some of you don't like using Amazon, but it's available from Amazon in the UK and the USA, as far as I know. And it's a great book because it comes with a CD, and it really does help you and take you through step by step over a number of weeks in how to sort of sit comfortably into a habit of being mindful and using mindfulness as a way of meditating. So do dig out that book if you're really interested. And the reason that I push mindfulness on this channel in particular is fundamentally because clearly the more detached and the more we can adopt the role of active observer, then the greater our efficiency will be in connecting to those energies that we want to connect to those subtle energies. All the time that we are not mindful, when we are caught up in thoughts of what could happen in the future, what happened in the past, we are not connecting to those subtle energies, to the actual power that we have as an individual point of awareness of the universe. So mindfulness is absolutely key. It's one of the 3 keys to the work that we do here on this channel. Hello, Sally. So how do we be mindful? The absolutely simplest way is to simply stop and focus inwards right now, right? For example, if I'm mindful about this, I'm not only mindful of the fact that I'm about to leave very large gaps in this conversation, but I'm also mindful of the weight of my hands, the sound of my voice, the weight of my body in the chair, the light, the fact that actually my eyes are slightly out of focus because I need a new prescription. These things, the presence, the awareness, the self. I'm aware of the fact I'm clenching my lips. I'm pausing. If you each now, right, take a moment, just this moment now, to actually just stop, assuming that you're able to stop, assuming you're not listening to this as you're driving in the car or something like that. Just stop, just sit. Or if you want to, just lie down. If maybe you haven't got out of bed yet, some of you around the world that tune in, just be present. I'm going to shut my eyes now, just illustrate this moment of taking that breath. If anybody tunes in now, then they get nothing apart from me sitting here. But close the eyes. That allows the focus. Go on, each of you do it. Even if you're in an office, just close your eyes, gently sit back in the chair that you're in and feel the weight of your body, feel the weight of your limbs. Become aware of the way that you breathe. Maybe you're breathing through the mouth. Maybe you can close the mouth and breathe through the nose, and become aware of the way the air crosses through into you. You can hear the sounds around you in the room. You can hear the hum of the computer, perhaps, that you're sitting at, if it's one of these old fan-driven computers. Or maybe there's other noises outside the room in which you sit. Traffic, dogs, any of these sort of noises. Maybe you're lucky enough to have birds singing outside. Just take that time, take this moment, and just be aware. And you can feel the life force in your body, that kind of excited feeling. Okay, so just come back out of that. It's really dull television when it's, oh, the rain, you got the rain. Okay, so, but there, taking that moment, that breath, that inward looking opportunity. When you apply that to things like, if you're dowsing and you are hitting a series of what are clearly incorrect answers, then dropping back into that space, working with the breath, use the breath, allow the breath to come in. Always, everything, they say, don't they? Everything hangs off the breath. Your whole body is focused on the breath and the rhythm of your breathing. So use it to focus and to still and to be calm. The key thing is that the more you focus, the more often you focus and allow those pauses in your daily routine at any time. At any time, you might even be just brushing your teeth and become aware of how you're brushing your teeth, the feeling of it, and the feeling in your body of you doing that, brushing your teeth. Focus on nothing else but just the action of what you're doing. The more you do that, then the easier it is for you to focus on it at a time that you need to focus on it for well-being. Now, mindfulness is fantastic for averting and changing habitual responses. We all go through life to a certain extent operating from habit. And the reason we do that is because it's a reduced use of energy. We don't have to constantly think about things that we're doing. We do things on autopilot, but we also think things on autopilot. So if we've got in the habit of thinking in a particular way, we may be facing a situation at work, let's say, where there's a new boss, right? Let's take that as an example. And what you were hoping was that the new boss was going to be somebody fantastic that you'd actually get on really well with and would actually listen to the issues that you've got. Turns out that isn't necessarily the case. Turns out that actually this new boss is somebody that you don't seem to get on terribly well with, but you can't figure out quite why that is. So there are two ways to that. How do you deal with that? Well, you can try all sorts of different ways to behave differently in order to elicit a different response from them. But also you can just be mindful about actually what is it that they are doing or saying that elicits in you the disconnect, that creates the disconnect so that you don't actually connect with this person. I'm making the assumption here that this isn't a bully, right? That the boss is not a bully. We don't want to be dealing with that sort of scenario. But anyway, if it's just somebody that you just aren't connecting to, then taking the time to assess and noting where, as this person comes up to you and you're going to have a conversation with the new boss, where is it in your body? Do you feel this sort of what do you feel? Just focus inwards for a moment. Try not to completely phase out. There's no point in sitting there and just sort of internalizing when this person is trying to speak at you. But you know what I mean? Yeah, exactly. This is it, Billy. See? Hi, Mystic Rose, Southern California. Good. So as as Billy is saying there, the pattern interrupt. That's the power of the mindfulness in a healing mode, in a healing modality. That moment when anxiety attacks, let's look at anxiety attacks. Anxiety attacks are like a lot of emotional situations where you can feel something coming on. You can feel an anxiety attack coming on, and you're circling around what would be the central sort of dropping point as you plummet into this anxiety frame of mind and physical responses. Typically with anxiety attacks, you're hyperventilating. But what I'm getting at is that as these early feelings of anxiety attack are coming on, the more mindful you are, then the earlier you can get those warning signs. And as soon as you get those warning signs, you can start to take action. You can start to regulate your breathing, to put your mind somewhere else, well, basically on the present, on the breathing, but also to assess where in your body do you feel the stress, the blockage, or the eruption of maybe something coming through that is just hitting you hard. Where do you feel it? Now, of course, I often talk about EFT, and there's one particular client I think is online at the moment, but Elizabeth, hi, good to see you. And you can use EFT as a energy system to start to actually access the energy meridians within the body. But if you're just using mindfulness, then you can become not only more aware of those early signs of the anxiety attack and therefore take steps to avoid it, but also in any other situation, just be more mindful of things that are causing you stress. With the dowsing, I would just want to pick up again on what we discussed maybe last time, or maybe the first time a few weeks ago, when we were talking about creative people. Somebody else, I think it was Tammy or Billy, I'm not sure who it was, but asked whether, as a writer, somebody that enjoys writing some poetry, whether they were accessing the subtle realms when they were doing that. And yeah, the answer was yes. And you see, the mindfulness, the more mindful you can be, then the more you will associate that feeling of being in that creative space, of settling into that creative space at other times in your day, right? Does that make sense? If you're able to sit there and be creative, writing, and you're aware of how you feel, and you're aware of the depth of concentration and focus that you have, because it is not only a mind-only thing, you actually feel as though you're in a different space when you're doing that deep creative work, when you're in the flow of that creative inspiration. A lot of painters feel that as well, right? And so you literally have to sort of extract yourself if somebody comes in the room to pay attention to them, okay? Because otherwise they can be standing at the door talking to you and you just don't even notice they're there because you're so focused in this space. If you're mindful of how that feels in that space, then when you're suffering and when your dowsing is off kilter, then you can try to bring your awareness as close to that focus feeling, that in the flow feeling of that creative moment. You try to move into that space. Now you're going to say, well, how do I do that? Well, really, it's up to you. With a lot of this stuff, I can give you the pointers. I can give you the try going down this avenue, but it's up to you to feel your way into that, to find your way into that space yourselves, and to think about everything that we say and discuss on the channel for yourselves, and to evaluate it and to decide, is it for you, is it not for you? I don't want anybody to take on anything that I talk about just because I say so. You want to put it into practice and test it out and see, does it sit right with you? And if it does, great. If it doesn't, fine. So think about it, really. I'm not sure that mindfulness is the new term for consciousness per se here now. I mean, mindfulness is a way to experience one's consciousness or one's awareness. I mean, we are conscious, we are aware, we have abilities to manipulate consciousness, which is what we are made of. So mindfulness is more of a facet of a way to manipulate the consciousness. I mean, everything being conscious, as far as I'm concerned. Now, Regina had a little comment from last week, which is about dowsing, and she was doing some dowsing, and she says it seems that her best energy for dowsing is either the first part of the day before 2 o'clock, or when she's got sufficient energy, but not heavy meal, right? So, because if you've obviously, like all of this subtle energy work, if you have a heavy meal, yeah, it is opposite of mindlessness. If you have a heavy meal, then the body's got to spend its resources on digesting that heavy meal. So therefore, because fundamentally any dowsing work is a focused concentration primarily up here, then if you're trying to digest a meal, the body hasn't got the blood supply to put it up into the modem, into the outer consciousness, because your mind is out here. Okay, your actual mind, the information that you that we all access, is not stored in what science calls the fortress of the skull. It is this. a lot of our life information is stored in our auric field, and our presence in the subtle realms continues as far as your awareness can detect, and of course further, as we know, because then you're linking into the worldwide consciousness. So don't think of yourself just as this being. Your mind is out here. It's not locked in here in the grey matter. So Regina is talking about optimizing her energy for prolonged concentrated dowsing, and she says, do I have any tricks of the trade that I've learned over the years to keep the energy up during dowsing, or is there a way of aligning with the best biorhythms? And you may be disappointed to know that actually no, I haven't got any tricks of the trade for that. This is one of the things, is that when you're doing this work, it is incredibly focused, and dowsing for a prolonged period of time, for an hour and a half, 2 hours, is still tiring. There's no two ways about it. Obviously, when you're doing the healing work, okay, Billy, I'll come to that in a sec. When you're doing the healing work and sitting for half an hour, 45 minutes in that focused manner, in that meditative manner, then to a certain extent that's less tiring, but because you're sort of bringing down energy from source and putting it through, but there's still an amount of concentration that you have to exhibit and to do that. And there's absolutely no good at all in trying to do that healing work if you're slightly under the weather. So it is one of the things about doing any of the subtle realms work, and focused intent work and ceremonial work, if you like, is that actually you want to be as optimized as possible with your own energy, not only in keeping it clear, but also in maintaining your energy level. Pop in some questions. Billy, what have we got here? So you missed the start. The book, the book is Mindfulness, Finding Peace in a Frantic World, by Mark Williams and Dr. Danny Pellman. I haven't got a copy here, as I'll show you, but it's available on Amazon, and in the UK and the USA. Okay, so Tom. Yeah. Hello, Ian. Good to see you. Good to see you. I expect you'll be running off shortly. I mean that in a nice way. I don't mean that I just put my foot in it here. Tom, angelic sprays. Well, yes. No, I see what you mean. I see what you mean. So, yeah, I mean, any of these therapy sprays can be really good for helping clear space, for rejuvenating space. I mean, there's been a modicum of success with that sort of thing in sort of helping rejuvenate for dowsing and stuff. I don't tend to use them personally, but I've been in groups where they've been used. Okay, good. Yeah, Ian does a regular show. If you want to plug it, Ian, do. If you put up the link to the local network, it's a radio show in I've forgotten where you are, Ian, in Vermont, in the USA. But it's an internet radio show, so it's really interesting. Ian is we won't go into too much detail, but he's got a great scientific background as well as a fascination with the spiritual. So he can have a little plug of his own. Yeah. Okay. Well, here now. I mean, that's a good question. That is quite a common question. I mean, you see, it's difficult, isn't it? Because either you're just not focused in enough. You're not allowing yourself to settle in, to allow the brainwave patterns to change, to allow yourself to be in that dowsing stroke healing modality that the brainwave seems to go in. Okay, so that's one. I mean, it's very common for dowsers to simply pick up a rod or a pendulum and just ask a question, and they're still in monkey chatter mode. So this is why, it's not a good idea to dive in straight away as a novice dowser with really big life-changing questions. And I always recommend that actually dowsing is taken as guidance, not word of God, not 100% accurate. It's guidance, it's intuitive guidance. But the other thing that can be happening here now is that it can be that your spiritual self, your spirit guides, if you like, are trying to illustrate something to you. And so if you're getting consistently incorrect responses with the same question, then you need to be really asking yourself, what is it about the question that isn't sitting right? And try to explore it. Now, the other thing I do say is don't ever ask exactly the same question twice in a row, or one, so don't ask it. Don't say, am I sitting down? If I said, am I sitting down, and I got a no response, clearly that is incorrect. Don't then ask, am I sitting down again? Because what actually happens is inevitably you get a yes. So you get the opposite of what you got the first time. Don't ask me why, because I think it's something to do with the way that we connect, because we're accessing the quantum 0-point field when we're digging out information. And I think that what we do when we ask exactly the same question again, we've made one connection, and what we do by asking the question again is make another connection into that field. But it's almost like a digital opposite. We've got a yes/no chance, and we're almost like just linking into the opposite thing. So that doesn't help. But I just say, really, as a rule of thumb, don't ask the same question twice. Just slightly rephrase the question. So there are lots and lots of dowsing charts, Billy. Yeah, that's fine. No, I understand the question. There are lots and lots of dowsing charts. Some of them will look more like a Ouija board than others. You can get dowsing charts that are specifically for healing, and they'll give you, percentages of remedy to take or something like that. I personally have never used a dowsing chart, but you can, sit there with the pendulum hanging over the chart, and you just watch where it indicates to. And again, as many of you will know, is that my dowsing with the pendulum is quite wild compared to a lot of teachers of dowsing, where they get very calm and just let it just take its time to swing. I haven't got that time. I'm too impatient. I've never used them, but I guess that's one of the reasons why I've never used a dowsing chart for anything. The only time I've used anything like that is actually a way of, I did actually write out the alphabet on a very large bit of card. A lot of you will know this, I've told the story a lot. A to Z. And I sat in the room where the spirit of place, the guardian aspect of the spirit of place in our old house was, and I asked her name, and I just held the rod over the alphabet, and she spelt Jane really quite quickly, and the rod just moved in my hand. I mean, I literally had it on the surface like that, and it swung, and that spooked the bejesus out of me. But so don't be scared by any of the dowsing charts or anything like that. Tammy, or Billy rather, don't be scared by these things. But as you open up to them, just take it one step at a time, so that you are confident in each step that you take. Because obviously, Billy, you were asking before about being a bit concerned about sort of diving into, subtle realm stuff when you were writing. Yeah, I mean, it's the theta brainwaves there's theta healing, isn't there, here now, right? And it's theta healing works without a doubt, but there's as the technology has changed and become more sensitive, I think, then there's more. It looks more like it's a different set of brainwaves, because the brain doesn't just drop into one realm or one facet of alpha, beta, theta, gamma, or whatever it is. It maintains all of those operating, but they're at slightly different sort of percentages. So there's a different sort of brainwave pattern. It's the mind mirror that you want to look at. You probably know all about it anyway already, but Yeah. Anywho. Chakra. Oh, I see. Okay, fine. Yep. That's fine. And what you can do, Billy, with that is to just, I mean, you can work with your own, if you wanted to move to a slightly different modality of working with your chakras, you can just sit in meditation and ask the question with the pendulum while you're meditating, and just check as you go down, and just ask upstairs just to realign as you go. In the same way as you can ask about the, most of us carry in this auric field of ours, where I said mind is, most of us carry our emotional baggage out there as well. And quite a lot of the time, you pick up other people's emotional baggage, and that's where it gets stored. And you pick that up as a dowser, and you want to clear that away. That's part of the chakra protection exercise, which is to clear, cleanse, and protect. So clear it out, push all of that crap that you don't need from other people, just push it out and get it taken away. Tom, does Metatron? Metatron, I asked Metatron to be present when I'm doing healing work on houses. And I do sometimes see sort of red and black effects when we're actually doing the healing. Not very often. It does sometimes happen. Metatron to me is not an archangel that I sit comfortably with. He's incredibly powerful. I mean, of course, and he's very, very relevant to the modern age. So I include him, but I find I'm more in affinity with archangels like Gabriel and Uriel. Gabriel being about communication, Uriel being about shedding light on situations, and of course Archangel Raphael as the medic doctor, as the doctor archangel. No, Mind Mirror here now. Mind Mirror is actually some software. Now we did, so that book is one that I wrote with a colleague of mine, Adrian Weber, which is Spirit and Earth, which is available from Amazon, UK and USA. But we did a whole bunch of work on the Mind Mirror. And this is the sort of, I mean, obviously this is black and white, but this is the sort of computer readout, alpha, beta, theta. It gives these sort of shapes. And really, I think, so there are very specific shapes that the brain puts out as a pattern. I was just trying to see whether there was a summary. Anywho, it's a mixture, alpha, beta, gamma, delta. But anyway, so if you Google Mind Mirror, you'll see the software. And there are a lot of people using it these days. It's not cheap, of course, but have a look. There'll be some stuff on YouTube about it. It is very, very interesting because it does show how the brain, the most interesting thing about it is that it shows that when we drop into the healing mode, which mindfulness is, always going to help you do that and know when you're in that healing mode, you're kind of accessing the integral part of being human, that ability to heal. Now, of course, somebody like Greg Braden will always be talking about this aspect of the human being, and he comes at it from a scientific point of view as well. But when we see that the mind can drop into that when relaxed, then it does bring into question this whole aspect that so many of us get quite wound up about, which is that we do seem to be kept in a state of stress as a species by those in charge. The media plays a massive role in that, and regulars will know that I will always have a go at swiping at the media for actually just peddling news that keeps the masses in stress. And I really do honestly believe that the reason that we are kept in stress is to actually prevent us from sitting in that healing mode. Because when we're in the healing mode, we are also powerful. That's the point. You have to allow yourself to drop into that healing mode, to that different brainwave pattern for dowsing, for healing, for manifesting, for things to change. Okay, and the last thing that anybody in charge wants is 7.5 billion people actually adopting their power and doing their thing. So they'll do anything they can to keep the masses occupied and scared witless, because as soon as we're concerned and stressed about money, life in general, health. I mean, the big one right now, of course, and it's not to be laughed at, but the coronavirus that's going sweeping through China and will spread around the world. That's a big thing that everybody will very easily be very psyched up about, will be very stressed about, because it's illness, it's potential death. So therefore, people, that sort of fear keeps us from being in our power. So that's why we end up with all of these. That's why people like David Icke are so immensely popular. He's not one that's keeping us in stress. He's trying to point out that actually you want to be aware of the influences that put you into stress so that you can negate them. That's what David Icke is about. That's right. Yeah, that's it, exactly. And this is also the point, Tammy and Billy, that we're trying to get to on this channel, which is to say that you are in charge of what comes into your life. So from anywhere, you are in charge of what comes into your life, because you can make the choices to keep it in your life or to ignore it. Okay, and that's where the power is. Excuse me, I'm about to choke. So, some more questions about mindfulness. Anybody got more questions about mindfulness? JF, you've been very quiet. What's occurring over there in Canada? maybe you've run away, JF. Yes, walking a life of discernment. That's a nice way to put it. It's a very nice way of putting it. It took me a long time, a long time. Yeah, good man. I haven't watched much of Gavin and Stacey, to be honest with you, Billy. Okay, see ya, Mystic Rose. Take care. Bye. Yeah. I mean, that's it, Tammy. You see, the thing is, it's all real, isn't it? That's the point. We're living in reality. It's real. But is it? Coming at life from the spiritual perspective, from that point that we've talked about so often, that we've talked about the point of awareness, a individual point of awareness, 7.5 billion points of awareness for feeding back information to the source energy of the universe. Here in our little corner, in our little aspect, little branch of the arm of the Milky Way. No, the Milky Way is the galaxy, I don't know. But that's so, that amazing spiral that we hurtle through space on, in that infinite space. We're so insignificant in that sense, but we're not insignificant, because everything in our life interacts with us. That point of awareness. It's that whole inside out way of looking at things. So if nobody teaches us how to adjust our perspective on reality, if we never come across that stuff, then we'd have no idea of how to do it. No idea how to step away and act with discernment, to be detached, to step into the power of that detachment, to be mindful in that moment, and to allow what needs to be allowed in that moment. You see, there's also hundreds and hundreds of years of science. But before that, before the scientific perspective, we had eons of spirituality, which was the real truth. Science brought with it one of the paramount things of the law of cause and effect. And of course we see cause and effect because we're living in a linear time frame. So we do see, I literally in speaking, I am exhibiting cause and effect. Air is passing across the vocal cords of blah, 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 blah. So there is cause and effect. But equally, when we're working at the healing mode, in the healing point of non-linear time, then actually cause and effect is almost like held in that space, and everything is of significance in that space. It's not so much about doing X to create Y. It's about everything in that space. And we are not in control of everything in that space. All we are is an observer of everything in that space. But we can choose what to allow into that space. And so we do the same with our lives. We can choose to not allow the depressing, stressful nonsense, the political pantomime, in many respects. We can just refuse to allow it in. Doesn't mean to say we don't have to be concerned about what we see in the external environment. We just approach it from a different angle. We go from the inside. As I've said before, evaluate what it reflects of you, what it reflects of you. What does the Extinction Rebellion, for example, or the extinction event, seeing as we're in the 4th or 5th extinction period, supposedly, what does that fear reflect in you, in us, in each of us? Because it sure as hell is in each of us. Anyway, yes, indeed it is, right. Yeah, that's a great way of looking at that, Ian. That's one of your classics. That really is a strong thing, right? Tom, yes, I think you were saying, Tim, a way of getting into the modalities of it is ASMR. That is mindfulness too. Yes, it is, isn't it? I haven't. I know you're big into the ASMR. I've not really ever got into it, but that's good to know. And good, Carol, that you've had that experience with Metatron when you're channeling Reiki. Excellent. He's incredibly present, Metatron, these days, and so he should be. Okay. So we got 10 minutes or so. 10 minutes or so. I feel as though I haven't really gone. I don't really feel as though I've gone into mindfulness in the manner that I was hoping that I would. I think we've touched on it in a very similar way to what we often touch on it. And it's not surprising that we therefore get accused of talking about deep stuff. Benjamin, I'm not going to say your whole name. Benjamin plus 10. Lisa, you are a Lisa, yeah. But are we living in a linear timeline? I have moments of slipping. Yeah, I mean, what you could. Sorry. Here now, I didn't see yours either. But Lisa, Ian would have a view on time as a linear state of being. We clearly are. There's a facet of us that clearly is living in a B, C, D, E, F, G linear fashion, but there's so much of us that isn't. I really do believe that, and you can stretch time and play with time in that kind of magician way, in that magical way, in that classically magical way. Don't ask me specifically how, but by working with the aspect of time, you can. And a lot of it is to do with the perception, of course, of how quickly it's going. And as soon as you start telling yourself that you have all the time in the world, you'll be amazed at how much time opens up and how synchronicitously you end up getting involved in those sort of meetings. So here now. Emotions are much quicker than thoughts, so we have to have a general heightened awareness in order to catch any negative response to the outside world before it turns into negative emotions. Emotions are instant. Yeah, that's cool. Good. Here now. Well, good. You haven't slipped deliberately. Well, you can try slipping deliberately. I mean, I'm not being funny. You can try it. You just want to be a little bit careful you don't time slip. People have slipped from one life into another, for brief moments, and I think that can be quite scary, but it's also quite interesting that suddenly their whole perception of reality changes as they slip, literally, just minding their own business, walking along a footpath on the hills or something, and they'll slip into a different time frame in the middle of a battle or something like that. So time is definitely it's something that can be manipulated. What you're kind of alluding to also there, Lisa, is that very often when somebody is having a spiritual awakening, things happen involuntarily. And really, dowsing and opening up the doorway with dowsing is quite a good discipline to actually start to enable the system, the body, to take control of what would otherwise be involuntary incursions from spirit into that kind of different headspace that spiritual awakening enables you to access, different perspective. So the discipline of dowsing is a very strong one from that point of view. You can apply it in many senses to that, to what some people experience as involuntary slippage in different ways. Not saying that you are going through a spiritual awakening per se, but you probably are, or you have been, clearly. Don't worry, don't get upset about the slippage. Just reading the chat here. Physical ailments. I mean, Matthew Manning actually he only deals with physical ailments. He apparently doesn't take on emotional cases. Doesn't deal with psychological issues. He deals with physical issues, and particularly cancer. So he works as a healer and does that. I have had cancer patients as clients. I haven't specifically been involved in healing the cancer tumors. I have tended in those instances to give them what I get, the intuitive aspect from my guide about what's going on, not directly working on them. I've done house healing work for people with cancer so that they can operate from the cleanest environment, so they haven't got to deal with some of that baggage and the detrimental energy around them, so their energy can be focused on working for themselves. Trying to think as I say all that. No, I don't think I have. I've worked with heart attack patients, that sort of patients sometimes. But I don't put myself out there as a physical healer in that sense. I'm considering doing a healing, some more training in that sense, JF, but we'll see how that goes. Yep. Okay, so sorry, Billy, you were saying something up here about me being on. Are you on a PC right now? Read the moderator thing. Click on the 3 dots after my. Oh, okay. Oh, add moderator. Well, that's easy. Billy, you're a moderator. Do as you will. Okay. Lisa, yes, the first time really upset me. I had to ask an astrophysicist friend of mine to explain what happened as best she could. It was revealing a whole extra layer of awareness to life. Okay. Now when it happens, I find it more interesting than scary. But yes, I do believe now that there is a good proportion of me that doesn't live in a linear time frame. Okay, that's cool, actually, Lisa. That's very cool. Very interesting. It happens. This is part of why being human being. See, this is part of why science is wonderful, absolutely wonderful. But science is about finding the uniformity amongst the 7.5 billion of us. And it then makes the massive assumption, which science shouldn't really ever do, make assumptions, that actually if it can categorize things within the 7.5 billion, then everybody should be conforming to the category that they come up with. I'm talking now about medical science. And of course, that's a nonsense. Excuse me, that's a nonsense, because each one of us is an individual. And because you're here now looking specifically at these, these aspects of your individual relationship to your reality. And that is something that the medical profession can't do. They can't, because the pharmaceuticals cannot address each individual's relationship to their reality. Homeopathy, however, absolutely can. And of course, science says, well, homeopathy doesn't work. But it, I could say categorically that it does, because it's working with the individual. And that's what house healing does as well. It's working with the individual connection. That's what we're pulling out when we do that house healing work. We're assisting people to come to a different, shifting their perspective on reality. I didn't really want to cover any specific aspects of mindfulness here and now. I was really just trying to, I thought what I was going to do is, Daniel Patel, how damn good to see you. I quoted a comment from you, dear boy, earlier on. I said, what we deal with is deep, or is it? So here now, really what I thought I was going to do was to be able to sort of launch in rather nicely and cover some of the basics of the practice of going into a mindful situation, just in case I hadn't covered it off elsewhere. I'm not sure that I did that, but we kind of did something. So yeah, good to see you, Daniel, too. I will probably drop you a message, mate. I will probably drop you a message. Billy. Yes. I mean, it's you know what? It's the universal essence. Spirituality is about the universal essence of each of us. And so we absolutely are working with the individual relationship to everything around us, everything in terms of our environment and everything in terms of people as well. Everybody we meet is a reflection of part of us. And at the end of the day, I mean, literally at the end of the day, when we do cast off this mortal coil, as I think it was once used in Monty Python, there is an essence of us that continues. Now, I could say that now, I believe that 100% now, 100%. And that essence actually ties in very closely to processes such as those used in homeopathy as well, because the energy of the tablet or the remedy that you get in homeopathy, science says, is completely impossible. It cannot have any effect whatsoever on any living thing. But if you think about the energy within you, and when we did that little sample of sort of practice, a little bit of mindfulness earlier on, and you can feel that and the life force going through your body, just an aspect of that, that's electricity. That's an electrical force. You're telling me that electrical force just fizzles out like somebody pulls a plug out at the end of your life and it just no, an aspect of that. One electron, what would it take? I don't know, Ian, if you're there still. Electrons, are they all electrical oscillations? Part of us exists, and it doesn't matter how much or how much in physical terms survives from one life to another. It's a point of awareness in a slightly different vibration, a slightly different dimension. And that's the power of what we're talking about here on the channel, is to actually understand and shift our awareness on different aspects of life as we come across them. sort of quantum resonance in the solution. Have I missed a bit there, Ian? Yanis, good to see you. Yes, well, and here we are at 4:30. So linear time has brought us around. Oh, I see. Okay, electrons exist as quantum probabilities. Yeah. Okay. So, yeah. Run. Ah, yeah. Good point. Good point. Or science has always concentrated on the how. How is this possible? How does this work? Number. I know that the energy flow continues, although I've moved on. Yes, indeed, it does. Indeed, it does. And that is part of the healing, is that we allow what we do when we do the house healing, for example, is we open the space, we open the flow of healing energy. We close the space as far as we're concerned, but we know that that healing energy is continuing to work on the space and on the person. We know that we're just opening a doorway. Yeah, okay, good point, Ron. Yeah. Why? Indeed, yes, because why is a philosophical question, and that is indeed. Why does this happen? Why does this happen to me? Which brings us right around full circle to the beginning of this this conversation today, when we find ourselves brought to the point where we're standing at the doorway to a sort of a spiritual aspect, a way of looking at the spiritual aspect of life. We're often asking, why is this happening to me? And the spiritual aspect answers the why question. And that's the question that we always have to ask mindfully, aware fully that everything is connected at that point. I kind of feel that I'm drifting into spiritual platitudes and saying things that actually make no sense. But most of you understand where we're going with this. Okay. So bless you all for being there. That's lovely. Any last questions, guys? Big wave if you're enjoying the chat. Please hit the like and subscribe buttons. Thank you, Billy. Well done. What a great moderator. Thank you. We'll do this properly next time. We'll pop Billy in as moderator and we'll get that going. Really nice to have you along, Billy, for that. Thank you very much indeed. Really good to see you all. Really nice to see some new names in there. Yeah, we're all going to go now, but any last questions, we'll quickly rattle off. I'll take the one. Whatever the next question is, I'll take it. Otherwise, it's just goodbyes. Thank you for this. Good. Lovely. Well done, Tammy. Thank you for that. Many blessings, as they say in spiritual circles. You didn't derail it, Benjamin. +10, Lisa. You didn't derail it at all. Didn't at all. That's what it's all about. The lives are a meandering, circuitous route through something. I don't mind, Ron. Is it really Ron, though? Why is this happening for me? Indeed. Goodbye. Why? For. Okay, I'm going. All right, guys. Look, see you next time. Leave some points, questions, comments in the comment section beneath the live or on any of the videos on the channel. And please, let's get something to really get a good grip on next week. This is good, but let's get some more meatiness going. Be lovely. We've got about 3 more sessions before we close off. So, Socrates, good to see you. Good. Yanis, take care. Take care. See you, Ron. Okay, bye all. Otherwise, the whole thing is going to be me saying goodbye. Cheers, guys. See ya. Bye.